What does one paragraph written in the middle of World War I have to do with a conflict still unresolved today, over a century later?
A land without a people, for a people without a land. What have we done?
Could a single letter from the British government really reshape an entire region's destiny? And did the greatest powers of the age knowingly unleash a future filled with hope for some and catastrophe for others? Today, we unravel the unsettling and world-shaping story of the Balfour Declaration, a document just 67 words long, but its consequences echo into the present day. It was November 2, 1917. The First World War had raged for 3 years. Empires were collapsing. Borders were being redrawn. And the British Empire, though stretched thin, was still one of the dominant global powers. Britain was fighting the Ottoman Empire, which then ruled Palestine, a region with a tiny Jewish minority and a majority Arab population. But far from being a simple military theater, the British establishment was watching rising political movements in Europe. Above all, Zionism, a political ideology seeking a homeland for Jewish people. On that November day in 1917, British Foreign Secretary Arthur James Balfour wrote a letter to Lord Lionel Walter Rothschild, a key figure within the British Jewish community and a supporter of Zionism. In this letter, Britain said that it viewed with favor the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people. Two phrases stand out: support for a national home. Nowhere does the declaration promise a state, not Israel as we know it. This subtlety is often overlooked. Yet, this declaration was publicized, and within days, newspapers across the world carried the news, shaking a region and inspiring movements with incredible force. Britain's motives weren't purely altruistic. Behind the polished language lay a strategic calculation. Britain hoped that supporting Zionism might win Jewish influence, especially in the United States and Russia, to the Allied cause during the war. Britain also aimed to secure British strategic interests in the Middle East, especially protecting routes to the Suez Canal and imperial holdings further east. And Britain foresaw a loyal Jewish community settling on Palestine, seen by London as a pro-British foothold in a volatile region. But for Palestinians living on the land, this decision was made without their consent and would dramatically reshape their fate. After the war ended in 1918, Britain didn't simply leave. Instead, the League of Nations granted Britain the mandate for Palestine, a legal framework binding Britain to implement the aims of the Balfour Declaration while also protecting the civil and religious rights of all residents. Here lay a key contradiction. British promised a Jewish national home, but also that nothing should prejudice the rights of the existing non-Jewish communities. In practice, this contradiction became impossible to reconcile. Jewish immigration to Palestine increased. Jewish institutions, land purchases, and political organization accelerated. Many Jews saw the declaration as a historic vindication. Palestinians, by contrast, saw it as a betrayal, giving political weight to an ideology that could displace them. Within years, the same declaration was marked in dramatically different ways by two peoples. Among the Jewish community, early Balfour days were celebrated as moments of hope and national aspiration. Among Palestinian Arabs, Balfour Day became a day of mourning, of protest, and general strikes, symbols of loss and dispossession. Entire cities witnessed black flags and demonstrations. This divergence shows a deeper truth: that history is not felt equally by all who live it. Throughout the 1920s and 30s, tensions between Jewish and Arab communities grew, often erupting into violence. Britain, caught between its promises, increasingly struggled to control unrest. In 1939, Britain issued a controversial white paper limiting Jewish immigration, provoking Zionist fury and pushback. But the upheaval of the Second World War and the horrors of the Holocaust transformed global sympathy for Jewish statehood. In 1947, Britain abandoned the mandate, referring the future of Palestine to the newly formed United Nations, which passed a partition plan proposing separate Jewish and Arab states. When Israel declared statehood in 1948, conflict exploded into full-scale war. Over 700,000 Palestinian Arabs were uprooted, a profound human tragedy still remembered as the Nakba. Today, some argue that the Balfour Declaration was a visionary step toward Jewish self-determination. Others argue that it was a reckless act of imperial policy made without regard for the people already living on the land. Formally recognized the state of Palestine nearly 100 years after its own declaration that helped birth a pathway toward Israel. This historic shift, symbolic and diplomatic, reminds us that the legacies of 1917 still ripple across governments, societies, and millions of lives. Think about this. One letter, 67 words, a century of war, diplomacy, displacement, peace plans, revolutions, and negotiations. No single document in modern Middle Eastern history has been more consequential or more contested than the Balfour Declaration. It reshaped maps, identities, nations, and the lives of generations across the globe. Even today, debates rage about two-state solutions, rights of refugees, settlements, recognition of Palestine, all questions rooted in unresolved promises from this century-old statement. If you found this video about the Balfour Declaration enlightening, like, share, and subscribe for more history that matters. Let us know in the comments, was the Balfour Declaration a historic justice or a historic mistake?